Barnes, I'd like to thank each of the witnesses for your expert testimony, and we're going to now move into the question and answer session, and so I will recognize myself. The overall goal of Pillar 2 is to ensure that all companies are paying a minimum rate of 15% everywhere they operate. It makes no sense to me that non-refundable tax credits are treated worse than refundable tax credits in the OECD Pillar 2 rules. The OECD's whack-a-mole approach to eliminate tax competition is ill-considered. Ms. Hertzfeld, as you know, the Pillar 2 rules favor refundable tax credits. JCT finds that the effectiveness of Pillar 2 might be significantly weakened by the introduction of refundable tax credits by low-tax jurisdictions. The country that introduces them thereby preserves its fiscal competition feature without visibly having a low tax rate, end quote. Ms. Hertzfeld, do these rules that were just stated, do these rules eliminate tax competition or merely just create a new competition for direct pay, tax tradable subsidies?
Thank you for the question. Yes, they do. The latter part of your question, they shift tax competition to other areas. One is in the form of the type of tax incentives that countries could offer, and so countries can compete along the lines of credits that are blessed by the model rules. The other way they can compete are also noted by the Joint Committee. They can compete for in the substance-based income exclusion, so that allows an exclusion from the top-up tax, and so they can compete in that area as well.
And with that would come negotiations that would get you, as a company or in a country, you would negotiate that with a body like ours, supposedly, or something similar, to be able to get those. And it would be a competition much like it is today. It would be influence peddling and lobbying, and it'd be all of those combined, except in a different world. So it's the old saying, tell me the rules and I can play the game. Is that fair?
Correct, and also note that they, in addition to tax incentives, this encourages a shift to direct subsidies, and so there's lots of different ways that countries can and probably will compete to encourage investment in their jurisdictions.
So it would be credits that would incentivize certain companies to possibly stay there and do business and pick and choose winners and losers for in-country competition, one favoring one competitor over another, possibly. All these things come into play that would create a whole another set of rules that we'd have to put in place and look at. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is countries compete for investment, and if one avenue is shut down, then they'll likely move to another.
Do you see this creating, and I think you've alluded to this, creating a sort of a whole new government free-for-all with added complexities and burdens that go along with that? I believe that's what you're saying.
So these rules squash certain types of investments, and so they will encourage other types of incentives to proliferate, which, yes, you've added complexity in shutting down one area, but taxpayers and businesses are always creative in trying to maximize their return on their investments in jurisdictions, and countries are creative in trying to encourage businesses to invest there.
Mr. Shizer, if I may, I really appreciate your scenario of really bringing it down to what everybody can understand. In your example of Virginia, my colleague here said, yes, they would love for California to be able to tax everybody in every state for all.
No, I said your daughter.
Oh, my daughter in your state, even though she's never been there. Mr. Shizer, can you go into detail how the OECD's favoring of certain credits over others can be problematic in the future as it relates to the sovereignty of this nation, and how the powers of this committee laid out in the Constitution could be usurped?
My apologies. Thank you for the question. Look, the Constitution is clear about this, that this is the prerogative of Congress, and this is a very old idea. We fought a revolution years ago because of concerns about a king and a distant parliament who weren't listening to American voices, and the Declaration of Independence emphasizes that taxes can't be imposed without representation. So it makes sense that revenue bills begin with you. They begin in the House because you're closest to the people. Now, it's true, the president does also partner with Congress in negotiating with foreign countries, but it is a partnership. When there are treaties, the president negotiates, proposes, but it's the Senate that needs to ratify. So we really don't want the president acting unilaterally. And I want to emphasize this is not and should not be a partisan point. Sometimes the president is a Democrat, sometimes the president is a Republican, and it should not be the case that a president can partner with an international organization to circumvent the will of Congress. And I'll just give an example, maybe points in the other direction. There's been talk about the energy credits that were passed last summer. If the next president doesn't like them and says, please repeal them, it'll be up to Congress to decide whether to do that. It should not be possible for the president to go to the OECD and say, hey, trigger a top-up tax to eliminate those because I don't like them. Now, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schatz. I'm going to, one last question, and we'll move on to the ranking member. Ms. Hurstfeld, a few of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have made a push to modify the U.S. rules for taxing the foreign income of U.S. multinationals so that it is calculated on a jurisdictional basis, also known as country by country. As you know, this is the primary change to GILTI to come into conformity with Pillar 2. Would this modification change JCT's outlook for the U.S. fisc, meaning if the U.S. modified the GILTI rules to be compliant with the OECD brokered deal, has JCT estimated that U.S. will still lose billions of dollars in revenue?
So I don't have the details behind the Joint Committee's analysis, but it seems to me that the two primary factors that were driving the numbers that showed a loss of U.S. revenues were, one, the fact that if other countries enact new domestic minimum taxes to increase their tax rate to 15%, the U.S. has to provide a foreign tax credit for that. So that's an automatic revenue. So other countries increase their taxes, ours goes down. Country by country GILTI doesn't change that. And the other is the UTPR that imposes the tax on U.S. Domestic source income, and country by country GILTI doesn't change that either.
Thank you for your response. I'd like to recognize the ranking member.